Well, hi there and welcome. It's great to have you here for this guided meditation and talk. My name is Jonathan Foust, and thank you for making the time to be here. Before we begin, my traditional acknowledgments. First, to Rita Moran, our mindful movement teacher. If you'd like to join Rita, you can join her at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. The link for her class is on my website and on the Facebook page, and that brings you right to here for this meditation. Also, a big thank you to the Insight Meditation Community of Washington, to our producer, Glenn Harrison, for streaming this out to you. I've got a mailing list you can sign up for. All these talks are available online, everywhere fine podcasts can be downloaded. And just to say that all this is offered freely. There's no ads, no paywalls, nothing like that. And if you ever feel inspired to support me in getting this out, thank you. I appreciate that. And finally, the next big thing is a retreat that Tara and I are leading, which is about how to keep your heart open in perilous times. That's going to be live and streamed, live at the Catholic University. So more information there on my website. All righty. Well, without further ado, let's take some time for some meditation. Part of our inquiry for this class is looking at intention. And it's a very, very powerful thing to reflect because intentions really sets the stage. So we'll do a short reflection on intention, and then we'll move into a short meditation. So when you're ready, you can close your eyes. Take some time to adjust your posture in any way that feels most alive for you, whatever feels good. Now we'll have about a little over 10 minutes for this practice. You might just spontaneously complete the following phrase. For these next 10 minutes, I am here to. What words arise or what words resonate for you? I am here to. And with that, you might bring your attention to your breath. Notice where you feel the breath. And gently lengthen the inhalation as you breathe in. And on the out breath, allow yourself to relax and feel. Long, slow breath in. Relaxed exhalation. And feel the effect of slowing down your breath. You may notice how it helps to shift your attention from the outer world to the inner world. This inner world of sensation, of aliveness, of pulse and tingling. Now, if you like, you might stay with this technique if you find it helpful, the long in-breath and relaxed exhalation. Or you might let the technique fall away. And we'll take a few minutes to explore moving even deeper into embodied awareness. Can you sense from the inside out the muscles of your face? Could the expression on your face soften? Could you feel your forehead smooth? Could you relax the muscles around your eyes? If you direct your attention inside your mouth right now, what do you notice? What do you feel? What happens when you soften the jaw away from the skull, opening up that space between the upper teeth and the lower teeth? Could you relax your tongue? And can you imagine the space inside your throat? And can you feel the space inside your lungs as your body gently breathes? Can you feel from the inside the distance between your left shoulder joint and your right shoulder joint? And can you feel or measure the distance between your shoulders and your elbows? The elbows and your wrists? Could you let your awareness flood into the volume of your right hand, thumb, and fingers, sensing from the inside out? And can you feel the volume or the space inside your left hand, the left thumb and fingers? And you may notice that sensing the volume is effortless. It's a quality of inner receptivity. And can you sense now the space between your navel and your spine? Can you detect the subtlety of the breath in the belly? Can you sense now the distance between your left hip joint and your right hip joint? And can you sense from the inside out the bowl of the pelvis? Sensing the distance between your hip joints and your knees. And the knees down through the ankles. The volume of your feet. And the soles of the feet and the heels. Sensing now through the whole body, is there anything right now that could relax or soften or let go? And you might now let your attention rest on the movement of the breath inside, or maybe the sound vibrations, either one. Noticing either where the breath is the most predominant, or resting attention in the belly, or the chest, or the nostrils. How intimately can you feel the breath or the vibrations of sound. Each time you notice the mind in a story, you might greet that moment with a very subtle smile. You have again come out of the trance of thinking, and you might again re-arrive. This breath, these sounds, this embodied moment. This final minute or so, you might refresh your practice. Again, what could relax inside right now? Is there anything that could soften even more? How intimately can you feel this next breath, these sounds? Sensing who you are as the one who is aware. And take a moment now to drop all technique. Just relax, feel, receive this moment. As you're ready, you might very, very gently deepen your breath. And let your body now move and stretch in any way that feels good to you. And welcome back. I was about 15 years old when I was introduced and initiated into transcendental meditation. Very foreign experience to me. You had to bring a flower and some incense and a piece of fruit, I think. I didn't realize it was kind of out of the Vedic tradition, of doing a puja, which is a little ceremony beforehand. So it was a little bit weird. And in that initiation, I was given the mantra and I said the mantra aloud, and then you get quieter and quieter. Then you internalize the mantra, and then you practice for a few minutes with the person who's initiating you, who was actually someone in my Quaker meeting. I experienced something in those moments of stillness, of sort of letting the mantra come inside, just a quality of a conscious shift in consciousness. It was really quite profound. And I had this just inner knowing, just an inner knowing. And I remember thinking to myself, whatever this is, whatever this experience is, I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. That soft inner voice altered the course of my life dramatically. Since that age, 15, I've had a pretty committed practice and have pursued this. That was a couple of years ago. And the question is, what if the direction of your life depends on the quietest intention of your heart? I'd like to talk about intention, how intention shapes your destiny, about the intention to let go of what is no longer needed in your life, about the intention to be kind, and the intention to do no harm. This comes out of the Pali Canon, the three qualities of deep intention: renunciation, kindness and compassion, and doing no harm. Intention utterly drives your life. It's the rudder of the ship. And I was thinking about this. I was reminded how my wife, Tara, was at a big conference. She was just kind of starting out as like a conference presenter. She was feeling pretty nervous. And she was on stage with a bunch of Buddhist luminaries, the heavyweights. And it was sort of the end of the conference. And the question to the panel was, what's the most critical thing in spiritual practice? And Tara's thinking, okay, I'm third out of four. I'll see what the others say, and hopefully I'll come up with something that I can add. So she's listening pretty carefully. First speaker goes on for about 5 minutes, and she's thinking, okay, I got 15 minutes to figure out what I'm going to say. Second person talks for about 5 minutes. The next person is asked, what do you feel is the most critical thing in spiritual practice? And he stands up and he says, intention and attention. And he sits down. And suddenly, Tara's stuck with, oh my God, what do I add to that? Intention and attention. Knowing what's most important and then paying attention to it. So imagine you're tending a garden. Whatever you water and whatever you weed becomes the future of your garden. And that's what intention really is. And then it opens up a larger question, which is, in your life right now, what are you watering and what are you weeding? What are you watering and what are you weeding? That's not like, what books are you weeding? what what thoughts, what speech, what actions are you weeding out of your life? Ajahn Chah, the great luminary in the Theravāda tradition, was once asked about the difference between the monks who found peace and those who didn't. And he replied, it depends on what they want. The mind follows its intention. And that's a pretty heavy statement, that the mind follows intention. And that doesn't mean if you are experiencing stress or unsteadiness or suffering, your intention is off kilter. In fact, your intention very well may be on track. If your intention is to be free, if your intention is to be happy, well, paradoxically, you're going to be inviting in everything that isn't free to be liberated and everything that isn't happy to get to know it. Which is why if you hang out with anyone who's doing any real spiritual practice, and someone asks you how you're feeling, and you can say, oh God, I just feel awful. I feel hopeless. I feel depressed. The other person will say, wonderful, wonderful. This sounds really rich. Something to work on. So intention is not just a private thought. It's actually a karmic force. Wise intention aligns you in your life. Now, aligns you with what? Well, that begs a question. What do you really, really want? What do you really, really want? Now, the word renunciation kind of gets a bad rap. I like to think of it as kind of clarifying what's most important. I have a history of being very ambitious and chronically taking on more than is reasonable. And a very good friend of mine, when I was outlining my projects, said, you can do anything, but you probably can't do everything. What's most important of everything you've named? You can think of the intention to let go as the intention to let go of what is no longer needed. I have had the good fortune to have had some classic experiences of letting go through the formal vows of renunciation. For many, many years, taking a vow of poverty, a vow of chastity. So I was really letting go of money, letting go of sex. I wasn't that interested in rock and roll anyway, but I was letting go of rock and roll too. And I took a vow, a very, very serious vow. And to be clear, I didn't want to. I really liked the idea of having money and sex and the option of rock and roll in my life, but it was the only way I could be part of the ashram. And I was very drawn to deepen my practice. And it really forced a values clarification. What did I really, really want? And what was I willing to give up to get it? And what I really wanted was to be more awake in my life, to simplify, to get free from whatever is binding me. The most challenging practice was my vow of what's referred to as brahmacharya, moderation, which in my case, as someone in my 20s, was refraining from sexual relationships, including including sexual relationship with myself. And the interesting thing was, by restraining myself, I began to notice all the patterns that would show up in relationship. I noticed how, to my horror, how I was constantly scanning for potential partners. And it became very binary, possible, not possible. And I saw how I presented an image in a way that would give me some feedback that would kind of keep me moving forward. And I began to interact with, this was a co-ed ashram. I began to interact with people of the opposite sex that I would have been very attracted to and would have pursued, and realized I never would have had the maturity to maintain a relationship. And because I was so conscious around my practice, these people with whom I would have wrecked the relationship if we had been intimate became deep friends. The letting go opened up more intimacy in my life than ever before. Now, for those of us who are kind of drawn to attraction to the opposite sex, our instructions were to see to see women as either a sister or mother. It's a very powerful transformative process for me. I didn't realize what I was holding on to. I didn't realize my conditioning, all my patterning. And what I found was, through that practice of letting go, more intimacy, more connection, more freedom than I'd ever had before. So the question is, what are you holding on to? If you let it go, would bring you more freedom. This practice of letting go is not necessarily a grim practice. It's about letting go of what causes stress and suffering. I didn't realize the degree that I was caught in my desires. Also, for many years, I gave up reading anything other than original scriptural texts, which sounds pretty extreme. Before that, my favorite thing in the world was going to bed with a New Yorker. But what I found was, over time, by letting go of entertainment, it created a really deep sense of joy, a powerful sense of savoring the simplicity, like traveling lighter on a long journey. And As the saying goes, if you let go a little, you have a little bit of freedom. You let go a lot, you have a lot of freedom. And I like to, this is the analogy. If you've ever cleaned out an old closet, it's been bugging you for a long time, you may know that feeling of how physical clutter in your life is directly related to psychic clutter. How good you feel when you walk by the closet or you look in the closet. So this is very much a part of this transformative journey. What are you holding on to that you might release? Every time I do a meditation retreat, I come home with this intense desire to simplify because I recognize how much stuff I have. And this process of letting go, it clears a space. It clears a space for presence, but it also clears a space for generosity. When your mind is not preoccupied, it can be more present. So, how do we make this actionable? One practice I do, and you might even try this right now. If you like, you can Zen pop quiz. Close your eyes unless you're driving. Just take a moment and relax and just ask the question, what's most important right now? What could I let go of right now? If you like, you can open your eyes. Letting go, this principle of renunciation, it is the yes of your heart to what truly matters. What's most important in your life? What are you willing to let go of to cultivate that? And letting go makes space for the second intention, the intention to be of goodwill. I've shared about this before, but one of the biggest shocks of moving to the Washington, D.C. area from the hills of Western Massachusetts, the bucolic Berkshires, was adjusting to DC traffic. I found myself constantly morally outraged. So many people who needed to be taught a lesson. And one day on River Road in Bethesda, I'm just driving along, trying to be mindful, and someone in a black Lexus passes me really, really fast, cuts into my lane, hits the brakes, takes off, passes another car. Before I knew it, I'm speeding up. This person needs to be taught a lesson, just caught, utterly caught in outrage. Um, it didn't take too long, less than a mile, and I realized that I was really I was in total reactivity. And I thought, here's an opportunity. Maybe this person found out their child was sick in childcare. Maybe his father had a heart attack in an old folks' home and he wants to get there to have some last words. Maybe this woman has been in a meeting and she's late to pick up her son at school and is anxious he's there waiting. As it turned out, with the stoplights, I ended up catching up to the black Lexus and pulled up next to her, looked over, and it was a 16 or 17-year-old chatting away mindlessly on the phone behind the wheel. Turns out she was unconscious and just utterly in her own world. And I laughed out loud because it didn't matter because I felt the shift. And it brought out a whole new intention. Whenever I get behind the wheel now, driving is a spiritual practice. And actually, yesterday I was driving down Georgetown Pike and someone was at a stop sign and I slowed down to wave someone in. A real, just a beautiful act of thoughtfulness and kindness. And I shouldn't have been surprised that the person behind me laid on their horn. But here's a question. If you might close your eyes if you like, but just two questions. What would it be like if everyone you interacted with in the next 24 hours You consciously wish them well. What would it be like in the next 24 hours if everyone you cross paths with, you paused and saw their innate goodness? If you like, you can open your eyes if you close them. This intention to be of goodwill, to be a well wisher of all, it is the antidote to ill will and anger. Kindness, compassion, service is a transformational energy that you can tap into, and it transforms relationships. A woman shared with me after one of my classes that she was in so much pain because she was alienated from her daughter in law. They didn't really like each other, and her daughter in law didn't want her to be around the grandchildren. And she was complaining bitterly about her behavior and her pain of being shut off. I did my best to kind of affirm her feelings, but I just suggested, I said, what if in your daily meditation, you surrounded her with light and wished her well? And you thought about the stress that she's going under and just sent her some good juju. And just do that for 2 weeks. Doesn't have to take long. And it was so cool because I saw her 2 weeks later. She came back to class and she said, something shifted. Something shifted. You can cultivate goodwill deliberately. You can cultivate kindness and compassion. You can do it through prayer. You can do it through by consciously directing your thoughts. And of course, you can do it through speech. You can do it through your actions. These small acts of kindness can have enormous impact. There's a classic story of a young man who survived jumping off a bridge in a suicide attempt, and he told the police later that he told himself, "I won't jump if on my way there someone smiles at me." And truly, one smile could save a life. So, being a well-wisher of all, looking for the good, can transform hostility into more wholesome states. And those wholesome states can continue to expand to compassion and to non harming. And these states, in the realm of Buddhist psychology or Buddhist philosophy, are referred to as the immeasurable states. And Brahma Vihara is like the divine abodes. And when you think about it, compassion, kindness, you can't measure their size. It's so immense and it shifts consciousness in such a profound and powerful way. Which leads to the next intention, the intention to do no harm. And this is a really interesting one. What does that mean? And I think for each of us, we have to determine what that means. I have a very strong physical reaction to mosquito bites. So when I kill one, I always joke that I'm just liberating it to its next incarnation, act of service. But it's interesting to see the different expressions of non-harming. The Jain monks are fascinating. They wear no clothes. They walk with a peacock feather sweeping ahead of them so as not to harm insects. They wear a mask over their mouth so they don't harm an insect by inhaling them. They limit themselves to one handful of food per day. They cannot stay in one place for more than one night. It sounds extreme. It sounds like really profound denial. But I have to say, and my experience is limited, with these Jain monks that I've seen, they have a glow. They have a light in their consciousness that is extraordinary. So we each have to find our way of doing no harm. I live in the woods, and at times the house has been infiltrated by mice and snakes. And there's a level I'm not willing to tolerate. There's a sanitary thing here. So I do trap mice and put them outside for the foxes. And I haven't had to kill a snake, but I have trapped them and released them, which completely creeps me out every time. But here's the question for you. Where in your life can you reduce harm? Where in your life could you reduce harm to yourself, to others, to the planet? And it's interesting when you do an inventory on non-harming. Well, life is about eating and being eaten. When I grew up on a farm, I worked on a 1,000-acre farm in college. I was the manager of a big livestock operation. For me personally, as how it's evolved over the years, is I do not want to participate in violence and cruelty to animals. That's just me. Harmlessness is rooted in compassion. If you continue to relax and pay attention, you become more sensitive. You become more sensitive to what's between you and feeling truly happy, truly free. This is the transformative journey. But paradoxically, the more sensitive you become, the more sensitive you become to the suffering of others. And that perception of the suffering of others extends beyond humans to all beings. But harmlessness, consciously practicing harmlessness, it includes thoughts, it includes speech, and it includes actions. More on that later. But when you look closely at how you create harm through judgment, through anger, through ill will, you can begin to sense how harmful it is to you. Every time you speak in anger, it's like throwing a hot coal at someone, not recognizing it's burning your hand. Or the other classic line, when you hold someone in contempt, it's like drinking poison, hoping the other person dies. So this element of harmlessness, it's another way of saying it is this. Harmlessness is love in action. So with these three intentions of letting go, cultivating goodwill, cultivating harmlessness, the heart becomes a compass for awakening. And we recognize that all we are is the result of what we have thought. It's founded on thoughts. It's made up of our thoughts. So when we remember that, recognizing that, we can let go of what's no longer needed and cultivate a greater quality of simplicity and joy that leads to a really deep arising of goodwill towards self and goodwill toward others, and a deep desire to do no harm. So, intention is such a powerful process. Again, think of it as the rudder to your boat. When we forget intention, we simply react to life. When you pause and you truly ask yourself, what is most important right now? It can redirect not just your thoughts, but your speech and your action, and cultivate a shift in your destiny, if you will. So, a final reflection. If you like, you can close your eyes. You might take a few slow, deep breaths. Let yourself respond to the following question. And if no words arise spontaneously, just make up the words that most resonate for you. The most important thing in my life right now is. Just sensing, intuiting, what is most important in your life? And can you sense with whatever you sense right now is most important? Is it rooted in some way in letting go? Letting go of what is no longer needed in your life as you open to that intention. Is it rooted in some way in a sense of kindness toward yourself, toward others, being a well-wisher of all? Is it rooted in some way in this quality of non-harming? And can you sense in some way in this letting go, this opening into what we think of as the immeasurable states? Your capacity for kindness, your capacity for compassion, your capacity for joy, and your capacity for a quality of steadiness that is present in the midst of change. When you're ready, you can deepen your breath. When you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. Whatever is most important in your life, may you cultivate that with steadiness and joy. Thank you so much for your time and for your attention, and blessings in all you feel called to.